Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we're going to be talking through 5 fantasy football breakout candidates for the 2022 season. We've already made one episode of this genre, so go check that out after you've enjoyed today's video. But these are 5 guys I'm super excited about. I think there's very favorable elements in their situations for this season. A lot of positive things to point to for why they can break out. And obviously, we'll be talking through skill sets, tools, all that great stuff. And again, that overarching fantasy football situation and why I think these guys are set up for success. But before we dive into today's video, I want to tell you guys about something very exciting that I'll be launching this week. SFS Weekly is going to be an exclusive service that I'll be dropping. Totally, again, exclusive content that I don't post here on YouTube, and the only other space that you'll be able to find content similar to this is on my website, sizzlefantasy.com, as an SFS Gold member. But all you gotta do to join SFS Weekly is drop down the description of today's video and give me your email. I'm not gonna spam you and give you, a ton of alerts every week, but what I will do is have one big drop every week with most likely an article, an update on the week's videos, any special offers we've got from SFS for that given week, and all kinds of great stuff. So you'll want to go check that out. Again, the first piece of content I'll be posting on there are my 10 fantasy football secrets for the 2022 season to dominate your leagues and become the best possible fantasy player you can for this year. Again, the invite to SFS Weekly is in the description of today's episode. All I need is your email, and again, it's just going to be one large drop every week, and I'm not going to overboard you guys with content, so go check that out. The last thing for today, as always, is if you're in need of a draft guide for this fantasy football season, head over to Underdog Fantasy, sign up, and deposit. When you do and use promo code SFS, you're going to get double your money on Underdog Fantasy and the draft guide completely free from myself on sizzlefantasy.com. I referenced that just a second ago, but that draft guide will be yours completely free. Redraft, dynasty, in-season, weekly lineup advice in consultation with myself, again, for signing up for Underdog using promo code SFS, and they will double your money up to $100. It's super fun. I actually just played last night for the NBA Finals. I felt a little bit ballsy, maybe a little bit too much. I put some money on Jason Tatum, the under for his three-pointers. The line is 3.5. And the dude was absolutely crushing it. So I lost out, but like a true champion, I'm going to be doubling down on that and playing some more games here for Game 3 of the NBA Finals later on this week. All right, that was a lot for a typical intro, but thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Let's get right into our 5 breakout players. All righty, here we go. One last time, check out those links in the description of today's episode. You can open up that stuff and get all of that taken care of in a separate tab while you're watching today's video. Our first player is Rashod Bateman, the absolute king of spell check and autocorrect. I can't tell you how many times I've been telling my buddies about how much I love Rashod Bateman for fantasy football this season, and I get spell corrected to Batman. So Rashod Bateman is going to be, the joke for today's video. Let me know in the comment section if you've had that same issue. But Bateman is someone who I am absolutely all over for this fantasy season. I think there is a ton of opportunity opened up in this situation, and I think he is absolutely poised to crush on his upside this year. So it's no secret that last season Rashod was a bit disappointing. I had high expectations for him because I absolutely loved him as a prospect coming out of the University of Minnesota. But obviously in year one, if you played fantasy a season ago, he didn't quite result or live up to, again, my lofty expectations. Now, that doesn't mean that he was a failure his rookie season, but he had a lot more legitimate competition for targets. And this season, that's not necessarily the case. So last year, you had Marquise Hollywood Brown in that Ravens offense. He was by far Lamar Jackson's favorite target at the wide receiver position. And then you also had Sammy Watkins, a seasoned veteran who's now in Green Bay, that got a decent amount of targets in the games that he was playing as well. Both of those players are removed from the situation, which opens the door for Rashod to enter the season as this team's wide receiver 1, which some people aren't as bullish on Bateman because of the fact that Baltimore is such a smash-mouth football team, meaning they are going to run the football down your throat with both Lamar and the committee of running backs they have in that backfield. And they're going to play power football. But this is still an offense where a season ago, we saw Marquise Brown, again, the team's top receiving target, in addition to Mark Andrews also being a really high-volume player at the tight end position, we saw that number one wide receiver role thrive and see elite level volume head his direction. You're talking 146 targets for a Marquise Brown, who I would argue doesn't really have the build to be an alpha wide receiver one, which is where I think Rashod Bateman can take that volume and take it to another gear that Hollywood wasn't able to. Hollywood had a lot of missed opportunities last season with drops over the top. He actually left a few touchdowns in one game against the Lions off the board, just dropping deep passes from Lamar Jackson. And you're also talking about 49 targets from Sammy Watkins opened up. So I do expect with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards hopefully getting their legs back under them and being healthy this season, that the Ravens will probably run the ball a bit more because they're going to find more success in that area of their offense. However, there is so much volume that's just been opened up for Bateman to take advantage of, and Devin Duvernay, as well. I think that Bateman at least will thrive, and Duvernay, someone we'll talk about in a future episode, but he might be a potential sleeper target as well for this year. But let's talk about Rashod Bateman, the actual player. So we know the opportunity has opened up. It has arisen. This Baltimore situation is better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And Bateman, for me, again, is the complete package and someone who can absolutely be a number one wide receiver for an NFL team at this level. He is a phenomenal route runner. His poise, his body control, I think he runs the entire route tree at an exceptional level, and at the catch point, he is absolutely fantastic. As a rookie, he was 5th in contested catch rate, so you're talking about passes where he's got heavy pressure from the defense, and he's got a guy all over him. He was 5th in terms of the percentage of those contested catches that he was able to convert into receptions. So again, the production wasn't fantastic as a rookie. He did break the 500-yard marker. He only had one receiving touchdown, though, so there's also phenomenal upside to improve in that category. I think he's absolutely going to smash and crush this season. And you're talking about Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, who showed evident progressions in terms of his competency at the quarterback position. Lamar is obviously a run-first quarterback, or a player who brings a level of athleticism and dynamic ability to the table that others don't. But he did take that step that we've been begging him to for the past few seasons in terms of becoming a more accurate passer, being more willing to push the football downfield and light it up on deeper patterns and play more of a quote-unquote traditional style of quarterbacking. And now this is still a guy who's going to run with his legs a lot and contribute a lot as a rushing threat. But one other thing while we're talking about Lamar Jackson that I want to totally put to bed and dismiss is he is not injury prone. His play style is not resulting in injuries for Lamar. He did get hurt against the Cleveland Browns last season and missed time. But if you go back and watch that play, I would put the clip on the screen here, but I don't want to get demonetized by YouTube. It was a standard passing play where he rolled out of the pocket and threw the ball and just got his ankle rolled up. It's not like his physical nature is what caused him to have his really first injury of his NFL career. It was just a fluke freak accident that ended up costing him time and seeing Tyler Huntley come into the game. So Lamar is not someone I'm concerned about yet as a injury-prone quarterback. The dude is completely fine. He's able to get out of bounds. He'll slide on occasion. He does what he needs to do to protect himself as a rushing threat, and those steps forward he took in a positive direction. Again, multiple TDs were left off the board by Hollywood Brown drops last year. I think that this season, Bateman, the more sure-handed player, a guy who I think has a better physique and overall build for being a wide receiver one in a football team, if he's able to absorb that work and that volume that Hollywood had in year one for Bateman, I think year two is going to be a phenomenal breakout, and I can't wait to see what he's able to do. His Underdog ADP, again, use promo code SFS, get double your money, and my draft guide's absolutely free for this season. His ADP is 57.5. So there are some debates in terms of and it would be an interesting video topic for later on this offseason, a draft battle between him and Darnell Mooney, who have very similar ADPs. We'll talk about Darnell a little bit later, spoiler alert. But there is some questions about who you should take first there. I think both players are fantastic options, though, at this point in time. Derek Carr switching over to the quarterback position is going to be our next breakout candidate for this season. Now, Derek Carr is someone who's formerly seen himself in the MVP race at earlier stages of his career, And I think he's someone that we think of as a made man at the quarterback position. I mean, he's gotten 2 nice contracts from the Raiders. He's definitely not a superstar level quarterback or regarded in that nature, but for someone who's been in the league for so long, it's a bit strange to be considering him a breakout. I believe this is his age 30 season. So right now, Derek Carr's ADP is a humongous discount in terms of what you're talking about the other players in today's video who are obviously breakout candidates as well. But the nature in a 1 quarterback league of him playing that position, he's just not going to be valued as highly. So his underdog ADP in best ball drafts, which I will also be posting a best ball video today of a draft. So go check that out after you're done watching this video as well. That ADP is 108.4. So the reason Derek Carr makes an appearance on the video today is I think he's this season, the 2022 year's version of Matthew Stafford. And now what I mean by that is that not that Derek Carr and Matt Stafford are the same players. I would say that Derek Carr is more of a playmaking, accurate passer. He doesn't have the arm strength or the ability to just cut the ball loose like Matthew Stafford does in terms of raw arm talent. He's not on Matthew Stafford's level. But this guy is a capable playmaker. Again, I think he's a made man at the quarterback position. He is certainly a franchise quarterback, and he is capable of being a guy that's able to deliver for fantasy lineups. And obviously, the change in situation here is the presence and the addition of Davante Adams this offseason. Now, I do want to talk about a couple of other things with Derek Carr before we get to that specific situation and what that means for Carr. Obviously, it's a great thing. It's a positive. But the other reason that Derek Carr makes the list today as a breakout candidate is because he's never finished as a top 12 fantasy football quarterback in his points per game finish. So he's never averaged top 12 production, that being a QB1 in 12-team formats. He's never averaged that level of productivity in a season. Now, his best finish was in 2016. I believe that was the year where prior to his injury, we're talking about him as a potential MVP. But why? Let's put context behind why he has never finished at that level. Derek Carr has not had, he's someone who does not have elite rushing ability. He's not a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, these guys who can scramble, improvise out of the pocket, make big plays with their legs, score rushing touchdowns. He's not that guy. He's never been that, and I don't expect him to ever be that, especially as he's getting older. His career best for an individual season is 140 rushing yards on the year, which puts him at a less than 10-yard per game average. So clearly that's not a large factor of his game. But the other and more important thing to me is that he has never had an elite wide receiver on his team. The best and closest thing he got was a young Amari Cooper, and a Cooper who, yes, had a 1,000-yard season with the Raiders, but I would argue his best days were his first season in Dallas, and Derek Carr was never able to really thrive on that. Yes, Amari Cooper can be considered a star wide receiver, but he is not a Davante Adams. He is not a Tyreek Hill, a Cooper Kupp. He is a nice outside perimeter threat with high upside, can make big plays, but Derek hasn't had a guy that he can zone in on in tight spots, big moments, and just rip the football to and depend on play after play after play. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has had, last year his most reliable wide receiver was Hunter Renfrow outside of Darren Waller, the tight end. You've got a guy who has been playing football with Michael Crabtree and James Jones at earlier stages in Carr's career and at the later stages of those two players' careers. A guy who had a first-round pick at wide receiver, but is no longer in the National Football League for off-the-field issues. A guy who was throwing the ball as his field-stretching target to Deshaun Jackson, who is sorely past his prime at this point. So Derek has never had the luxury of this level of a player. Obviously, he played with Adams at college, but Adams in 2022 versus Adams in 2013 in their senior season, or not their senior season, but I don't know specifically if Davante was a junior and Derek was a senior. I don't know the case. Their final season together at Fresno State. This is a different animal that you've got today with Davante Adams, a guy who was second in targets with 169 this past season, a guy who is the highest producing scorer in the touchdown department at the wide receiver position since 2016. runs the entire route package at the highest level of probably anyone else in the NFL. Devontae Adams is that guy that will be the difference maker for this team. And when you have complementary pieces like Darren Waller, like Hunter Renfrow, who will be on the day one roster, there was some silly Darren Waller trade rumors on draft day. Those guys are going to be there, and they are going to be an evident part of this offense. And that is a luxury Devontae Adams never had in Green Bay. So you're talking about potentially seeing the lightest coverage he's gotten in the past couple of years, where he's really been double-teamed over the top on a high percentage of snaps as compared to other players. A tight end who can completely eat up the middle of the field, and a possession receiver in Cooper Kupp in the slot, in Hunter Renfrow. I see a lot of similarities in their game, but by no means is Hunter Renfrow Cooper Kupp. You've got a very dependable safety blanket who, if you get enough time in the pocket, he will get open and shake his defender because his routes are very, very crafty. So you've got three guys right there. You did lose Zay Jones. You did lose Henry Ruggs. The team, I don't think, brought back Deshaun Jackson. I could be wrong about that. But those three players are the key here. That's what's going to push Derek Carr over the edge because he finally has that nucleus of weapons surrounding him, which is oh so important for this QB spot. It was Cooper Kupp, it was Robert Woods, it was Tyler Higbee, it was the run game, McVay system. Now that's the one thing Derek Carr does not have, is he doesn't have that Sean McVay. We have seen Josh McDaniels fail previously. I think he'll be better this second time around. But Carr notably does have a healthy run game supporting him. I don't know if it's quite as impactful as that Rams run game was, despite the fact that Cam Akers was out for basically the entire season until the postseason run. But all that considered, I still really like Derek Carr's ability to, easily finish as a top 12 quarterback this year. Now, is he going to be elite, top 5 like Matt Stafford was? Maybe not, but that 7 to 8 to 9 range, definitely very possible, and we could easily see him have his highest point per game average of any year of his career to this point. Now, Treylon Burks, the rookie wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, going back to that wideout spot. I'm super excited for Burks. I think that, I've talked in episodes about the prospective upside of players to finish as the rookie wide receiver 1 for this individual year. I really like Christian Watson. He's a guy who obviously has Aaron Rodgers playing for him or throwing him the football. You're potentially having the upside for a 20+% target share in that Green Bay offense with those athletic upsides and intangibles. I think Treylon Burks is a better player, and he has, I would say, very similar opportunity and upside. Again, being the better player, being a guy who can walk in here, and we'll talk about in day one here, being the number 1 target in the Titans offense, he could easily be that player as well. So Treylon Burks makes the video for that exact reason. His ADP and Underdog's best ball format. Again, promo code SFS, double your money, and get the draft guides free on sizzlefantasy.com. The link to join Underdog and draft with me this season, join best ball leagues with me, is in the description of today's episode. But this guy is phenomenal, and I knocked on him a little bit because I think the hype was out of line that he was getting pre-combine, and then once he ran that 4.55, you heard crickets, and everyone was back on Drake London, which I think is awfully funny because I see the upside. I like Drake London. He's a nice player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna. This isn't the bash the rookies party here, but I try to be as realistic and grounded as possible. For how much Treylon Burks' hype fell off the wagon after the 4.55 40-yard dash, and again, I love his skill set and think the dude's got a ton of upside, but I wasn't drooling over him like a lot of people were. If Drake London ran the 40-yard dash, which he did not, I would have loved to see what would have happened because he would have ran a slower time than 4.55. I'm almost certain of that. So I think he'll be successful with the Falcons. I think he'll be very relevant in fantasy. I think he's got star upside and potential. But I just thought it was funny how that 40 time, which I'm like 99.9% confident that Treylon Burks would have ran a faster time than Drake London did. It's just interesting to see how that outcome impacted his dynasty ADP from being the consensus number 1 overall pick to no longer being that for a lot of people. So essentially what it boils down to here, actually talking about the 2022 breakout potential for redraft this year, is that Treylon Burks can be A.J. Brown 2.0. Treylon Burks is just slightly slower than AJ. Now, every 10th of a second and every 100th of a second counts significantly when we're talking about sprinting a short distance. But AJ Brown's combine time back in 2019 was a 4.49 versus Treylon Burks' 4.55. So you've got 0.06 of a second slower for Treylon Burks, but a guy who is a couple pounds heavier and 2 inches taller than AJ Brown. So athletically, you can't teach that size. That's technically an upgrade there, if you will, because he's just going to be a larger body and a larger frame. Both of these guys, though, extremely physical in the open field. A.J. Brown was one of the most dominant players in the play-action game when Derrick Henry would suck all that attention into the box, and then you would get a one-on-one matchup, potentially a safety shading down in the run game, maybe, taking a false step forward on that play action fake. And then you've got AJ Brown running deep, wide open. And if he catches the ball, if there's another DB trying to come tackle him, you're going to get stiff-armed and planted straight in the dirt. So Treylon Burks, to me, can be that very similar player. Again, I expect him to win vertically. I think that for a guy of his size and his speed, he has phenomenal body control. It's not nearly a Garrett Wilson level body control or just athleticism. But again, at that size, he's got pretty dang good athletic measurables. And I think he just fits so perfectly into this role. He's a guy who is comped by a lot of people towards that A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel mix. And I think if he's used in this fashion, that's fantastic. The reason that you've got a rookie wide receiver in this offense that I think can emerge as the number one option for this Titans team and be more fantasy relevant than even a Robert Woods per se, who is coming off an ACL, so that's fair concern there. But that's not even where my analysis rests here. It's that I expect Robert to do work underneath in the middle of the field. And obviously he'll get his jet sweep work as well, and probably some utility in the wide receiver run game, if you will. End arounds, jet sweeps, reverses, all that great stuff. But Treylon, for me, is the big playmaker, the explosive guy, the player who has an opportunity to see more volume, because this is a guy who at the Combine talked about he would love to be molded after Deebo Samuel and used in the run game or the short passing game, and using his physical gifts to his advantage to, again, impose his will on defenders. So when you talk about, again, that play-action game, the vertical ability, the underneath opportunity, I think that there's potential here. I think that the Titans could have used A.J. Brown that way if they wanted to. They never ended up doing so. But the shoes that Burks has to fill, it's not like we're talking about him having to get 140 targets here and having a 100 reception season. A.J. Brown's career high is a 70 reception season on 106 targets. So if Burks can be efficient on a similar level to what AJB was able to do there, the sky's the limit, and who knows? If they choose to use him in a higher volume fashion and use him more on the underneath game, which was something that AJ really never thrived or succeeded in his time with the Titans, you've got a lot of upside here, and you can see why this might start to work out very quickly, because they're going to need someone in the passing game. Regardless if that's Robert Woods or Treylon Burks, someone will have to step up, because you can't just replace that star power, or not replace it, rather, and become a pigeonholed one-dimensional football team. So I expect that coaching staff to try and get that work done there. Darnell Mooney, we talked about him. We said he was going to come up here. His ADP on Best Ball is 61.8, again, provided by Underdog Fantasy. So this is an opportunity to draft a player outside the top 24 wide receivers off the board. So you're taking him as a wide receiver 3 in some instances, depending on if he goes close to his ADP or a little bit behind it. Obviously, if someone reaches up on the board, they might be taking him in that top 24. But this guy saw ridiculous volume last season in a terrible offense that I think will make an honest effort to take steps forward. And if he's able to finally cash in on some of this upside and some of the things we'll talk through here in terms of his deep metrics, in terms of the targets and the opportunities he was getting last season, Darnell Mooney is a way better player than what he's being drafted as here in the 2021 season. So as I talked about, he's a super freaking good deep route runner. This is a guy who separates at a very high level downfield. Even in his rookie season, when he saw almost 100 targets, he had 98 to be exact, against the Rams. There was all those highlights, obviously, of him making Jalen Ramsey look silly with his routes. He's very explosive. He's very fast and speedy downfield, and that will help him win on those deeper routes, which, again, is critical, because if a guy's running deep routes, separating and having success, He just needs the quarterback to give him the ball there, and that has been the struggle through the first 2 years here. But he had 140 total targets in this Bears offense a season ago. That's dang good volume. That's what you want to see. Those are phenomenal numbers. That was 26.7% of Chicago's target share. So another really great thing to see. He's getting a high chunk or piece of that pie in the passing game offensively there. And this is a guy who, on those targets, it's not like we're talking Deontay Johnson here, where Big Ben is shot putting the ball to him at the line of scrimmage or throwing him a 3 to 5 yard quick slant route. This is a guy who was 13th in air yards last season with nearly 1,479 to be exact. 15th in deep targets. He had 23 deep targets a season ago. So again, very valuable volume there if you're able to cash in and hit those deep balls over the top. And he was 9th in unrealized air yards. That is the key thing that's holding him back here. The unrealized air yards are those yards that, yes, so you've got nearly 1,500 air yards. He had 815 of those being unrealized. So over 15% of the distance that the football traveled to him in the air was not capitalized on. That means the football hit the ground, it was intercepted, he didn't make the play. And a lot of that comes down to the target accuracy he had last season, where he ranked 84th in targets, again, thrown to him a season ago, where he was dealing with Andy Dalton, a rookie Justin Fields, who, let's be completely honest and objective here, was kind of, lost a deer in the headlights type situation for that football team. I think his progressions and his reads were just a tad slow, but my analysis here, my explanation for why Darnell Mooney can be a breakout is because Justin, if you ask me, has all the tools. I have full confidence and faith in him that although the situation arguably got worse this year, Allen Robinson is gone, their offensive line is still poor at best. I think Justin Fields gets better. I think he is more poised in the pocket. I think that another year of watching film, an offseason of practicing, him and Mooney have phenomenal chemistry and confidence in one another. He's going to see footballs come his way. That is not a question here. It's, can the target accuracy get better? Can the quality of passes thrown Mooney's direction improve? And my answer to that question is yes. I, again, believe full-fledged in Justin Fields to deliver, to hit on this upside. And if he sees 130-plus targets this year, which he could see more, you're talking about replacing Allen Robinson with, take your pick, Equinemius St. Brown, Byron Pringle, Velus Jones. They have Calvin Ridley's brother on the team, and they've got that's honestly all I can scrape off the top of my head here. So it is Mooney to the moon. We are talking about a player who is going to get filthy volume if those passes get cleaned up, if Fields takes half a step forward in terms of his ability to be an NFL quarterback. This guy is going to hit, and this guy is going to deliver. I am pumped to draft shares of Darnell Mooney this season. We'll see. Maybe I'll get a share of him and scoop him up in today's best ball draft. And then today, our final player, our fifth guy on the board, is Kenneth Walker, the second running back taken off the board by the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, that is a sick jersey edit. I pulled that off Twitter. So great work. I forget the account that made this, but not my doing there. So not taking credit for that jersey swap. But Kenneth Walker's ADP here is the 87.6th overall pick. You're talking about a guy who has legitimate RB2 upside, could potentially have weeks finishing as a top 12 player, because I think his upside is sky high for this season. This is a player who is an absolute beast at being a one-cut, explosive scoring threat. In college at Michigan State, he was a player who, against even the toughest of opponents against Michigan, was just taking balls off and getting to the second and third level of the defense. And his explosiveness in space cannot be underrated here. He ran a 4.38 40-yard dash. And I think that obviously that's going to translate very well. The Seattle situation here is not perfect. You do have some hurdles that you're going to have to overcome here. And the first piece of that is Chris Carson. So I'll talk about Chris for a second here. He's obviously had his neck injury last season. Very, very serious stuff. Technically puts his entire football career in jeopardy here. And right now, it's a big question mark. Pete Carroll's not really saying much at the podium when he gets asked about it. He's being, not shady is not the right word, but he is withholding a lot of information if they even have it at this point in time. I was doing some research. It sounds like the timeline for that injury recovery is supposed to be about 6 months. But again, old Pete ain't spilling anything at the press conference and during media question time. So we really don't know exactly how his path to recovery is at this point in time, or at least I haven't seen anything while I've been scouring news outlets and Seattle Seahawks beat reporters and whatnot. But I think that there's a chance, and things that I've read, is that Chris Carson could end up being a cap casualty here. The team would save $4.6 million by releasing him. And when you draft a second-round running back, you're a guy who is definitely more talented than Chris Carson. I would say Kenneth Walker, yes, Chris Carson is a very good player, but I think he just brings more explosiveness, and he is a player who could be a team's lead running back very easily. It might just be the case here. I mean, this is kind of a mysterious injury and a circumstance for Chris Carson that obviously isn't ideal. I'd love to see him, if he gets released, get an opportunity with another team to kind of get his career back on track if that's in the best interest of his health. But I don't think it's out of the picture to consider him a cap casualty potentially here. The timeline for that was a post-June 1st release, which it's June 6th, Monday, June 6th, the day I'm recording this video. So it has not happened yet, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. Especially after they evaluate Penny and Walker. But the reason I could see them keeping Chris Carson around is because of Rashod Penny and his documented injury history, which we will now dive into here. So Penny's a guy who's had ACL injuries. He's a guy who frequently has missed time throughout his career. He actually has never played more than 10 games in an NFL season since his rookie year in 2018. And that's kind of concerning. This is a guy who was a former top pick by the Seattle Seahawks, and he just hasn't delivered. He's very talented. When he plays football, he is very productive. You can see flashes of the player he might be, but with those missed games and those documented injuries, he's never had more than 119 rushing attempts in a season, never more than 749 yards. And in 2021, he had his career high in touchdowns with 6 total rushing TDs. So I think there's a lot of volume for the taking here. If Kenneth Walker can just simply be available, it easily puts his foot in the door in terms of being this team's top option. And I think that if he gets that opportunity, which if I was a betting man, which technically I am because I love to play best ball, I love to play prop bets and pick 'em games and all that great stuff, I'm going to say at some point he's easily going to get an opportunity. A week alone in the backfield to do his work and to put in obviously the volume to get the opportunity to be the lead back for this team full time. And I think that once he gets that opportunity, he's going to smash on it. Again, he's insanely explosive. If he can get to the second level of the defense, kiss him goodbye. You're not catching him in the open field unless you're like one of the fastest defensive backs in the league. So I think Kenneth Walker's going to crush it this year. You're also talking about an offense that demoted from Russell Wilson, or downgraded is probably a better word here. You downgraded from Russell Wilson to Drew Lock. So you were already a team that overtly ran the football more than you should have, having a guy the level of Russell Wilson as a passer. You better not throw the ball as many times with Drew Lock as you did with Russell Wilson, or things are going to end very poorly. And if that means increased rushing volume and attempts for Kenneth Walker, it might hurt his efficiency a little bit, but he's still going to have those explosive runs and still be a big playmaker for this football team. Again, he's explosive, one cut player, massive ceiling. And again, I think that he's in for more opportunity just because of the transitional situation without Russell Wilson at the quarterback spot. So those are 5 breakout players for 2022 fantasy football. Today's episode, if you enjoyed it, drop down, click that like button, subscribe if you're new around here. We're always trying to grow the SFS community, get as many of you guys helped out for this fantasy season as possible. One more time, remember to go check out SFS Weekly. The invite link to that is in the description of today's episode. All I need is your email. Again, I promise I will not spam you. It's going to be a one-time weekly drop with content exclusive to that area. And we're going to get you guys set up with all kinds of great stuff over there. Again, that first piece of content will come out later this week. That's going to be my 10 secrets to dominating your 2022 fantasy football league. So, and then finally, again, if you guys want my draft guide on sizzlefantasy.com, check out Underdog Fantasy, sign up, deposit. use promo code Sizzle. They're going to, excuse me, not promo code Sizzle, promo code SFS, and they are going to double your money, and you're going to get that draft guide completely free. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. Drop any comments, any questions you've got for me down in the comment section below. I will get back to you guys as quick as possible, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.